This one's going to be a fun one, so we're looking forward to tearing it apart and giving this thing a whole new life. Okay, so we got the covers off. We're ready to pull the cylinder head and do the head spacer, and then we can start reassembling it and putting the turbo gear on it. Bling! Okay, cylinder head's off. As you guys can see, we just got to clean it all up now. And Clayton's already got the gasket separated, so when you're doing a head spacer motor, you get a head gasket, but you gotta separate it to put basically one part of the gasket on one side of the head spacer and one part on the other side. So this is the head spacer. This one's a used one actually, because it came from Kayla's old kit, but it's just gonna be sandwiched together. Like so. It needs to be cleaned more so it wouldn't lay it down.
That one down, that one over, and that one on top.
Goes like that, yeah. And then the way to separate them, do you have the tool?
Put the tool the right way.
Yeah. So there's little rivets that are in the head gasket. And the easiest way that I found to get them apart is basically a set of these little pinchers.
Yeah, there's one side that's like mushroomed out, right?
And you just kind of pinch the rivet apart. And then that way you don't got to try to run it through a drill press or anything like that and obliterate your new head gasket. So we're going to clean this stuff up. Oh, you get a little, that's what they look like there. So we got to clean everything up and get her back together. Get the new ARP studs in it and get it back together. All right, so we got everything torqued up, new bolts, and we're ready to start cleaning everything up and getting the side covers and everything back on so we can get the clutch and flywheel and start putting the turbo gear on. So, oh, one thing I did want to mention, with the head spacer, with the head spacers we sell, you do not require to do anything with the chains in regards to lengthening or anything like that. This is OEM chains, no hocus pocus, very simple. Back to it. Okay, so we got the R32 engine mostly together now. There's a few things that need to happen, but we want to get it back in the car. I'm not sure how much we filmed during putting this together. I know we did some with the head spacer and stuff like that, but I don't know if we caught much of putting the turbo gear on. But there we have it. It's ready to go back in now. The couple things that I do need to address is I need to pull the pan off. Once it's in the car, it'll just be way easier to pull the pan off and I can get it up in the air again. And then we got to mount the downpipe and stuff again too. But the way it's all set up right now, the downpipe's just going to bolt right in. The wastegate's exactly where it needs to be. The intake, all that stuff's done. We did everything behind the engine that we could while it's out of the car, because obviously it's a VR. It's a lot of engine for that engine bay. So we did as much as we could out of the car. and then I'll just have to do the coolant lines and a few other little things once it's back in. But we're on the home stretch now, so let's get this thing in the car. Okay, so I don't know how much I filmed of this Mk4 R32. I know we filmed a bunch of stuff, but I don't know exactly what we filmed. So I'm going to go over a couple of things. Hopefully it's not a repeat from the footage that we got. But as you can see, it's mostly together now. There's a few things that need to happen before we get it up and running, but it's very, very close, as you can see. The intercooler obviously is one thing we got left to do. And for those following along that have turbocharged Mk4s or R32s in the past, this front rebar is different with this Japanese spec R32. It's actually quite a bit lower than the stock Mk4 that would come in North America. So this is going to have to be modified quite a bit in order to fit the intercooler in here, because generally the top of the rebar is quite a bit higher. It's up here on the ones in North America. Anyways, minor, we'll get to that. Some of the things for those that, you know, may boost one of these down the road. This intake manifold, where it moves the throttle body up here, there's a handful of things that need to happen to make that throttle body fit. The throttle body has to be modified ever so slightly in order to fit around a sensor and a hose. It also, you have to modify the fans to clearance so they're not running into the throttle body. Not major stuff, but it's stuff that definitely takes time and putting it all together. We got all the coolant lines ran for the turbo. We got all the boost solenoid lines ran for boost control, wastegate, everything, all that stuff is already hooked up. We do have to run the boost controller itself inside the car still. Underneath the car, which we'll show you in a bit, is basically all buttoned up, ready to go. The major thing really left to do, which we don't need to do to really start the car, but is the front mount intercooler stuff. So with all that being said, the next little bit you'll probably see, I'll probably think of some other things that we did to it that is specific to getting this together. Obviously we did the head spacer motor and stuff like that, but it's basically a stock engine with the head spacer and the turbo kit. And this one we're running, if I haven't mentioned it in the previous video, which I probably did, this one's going to be running United Motorsport software for the turbo side of things and tuning. So we don't really have a whole lot of tuning that is required with it. We're basically just going to bump the boost up a little bit with the boost controller to get to the power level that we want. So the next thing you'll probably see is this thing running and maybe a couple of other things that I missed, but I just wanted to bring you guys up to speed at this point in the video so you can see what we've done. I know a lot has happened, but we're almost there. Immediately after I shut the camera off, I remembered something else that needs to happen. I need to pull the valve cover back off because I'm going to weld a bung in here for the catch can. The catch can setup, I believe I'm going to place over here, wherever it's going to fit the best, but I think on Kayla's car we had it over here and it worked out great. So I'm going to pull the valve cover back off, weld a dash 10A in fitting on the valve cover, and then that'll take care of any bit of fabrication stuff that needs to happen aside for the part of the intercooler stuff. Okay, so instead of pulling the valve cover off, I end up finding a dash 10 stainless bung here. So I had to pull this out anyways out of the valve cover, and Clayton just cut the end off it. We cleaned it all up, so I'm just going to weld this to this now, and then we'll just push that back in. And it'll just be like stock, and we don't have to deal with welding up dirty old cast aluminum that's been living in oil, which isn't any fun most of the time. So this will be super simple, save me a little bit of work, and still look super clean. So what I always do before I weld these up is I put a cap on them, because sometimes when they try to arc out for a ground, it will mess up the end of the bung. And since the sealing part of these, if I can do this with one hand, clearly I can't. Since the sealing part of these, get that in focus, is right here, if this gets damaged at all, then it's never going to seal properly. So if we're trying to put it down on the table like that and it arcs out, trying to find ground and messes up the end of the bung, then you're basically scrapping this. So I always put a cap on them, and let's start welding this up. Okay, so on the R32 we have the CTS exhaust that reduces down because it basically is designed to match up to stock. And then we are missing a giant piece, and this is the downpipe from the turbo setup. So I got some V-band clamps. We're gonna cut this off, and we're gonna put on, whoops, so we get that into the frame. And we're gonna put a V-band clamp on here, and then add the piece in the middle, and that way we'll have 3-inch all the way through right straight to the back. So we got a little bit of fabrication to do, but this will button up underneath the car and finish the exhaust. So let's do it. Let's get to it. Okay, so we got the exhaust done. I'm probably yelling in the mic because I have it pointed directly at me. This is the CTS kit. I had to weld in a piece to match up to the part of the downpipe from the turbo kit. So I just put a V-band on it, just made it all 3-inch straight through. This piece was originally, Clayton ended up having it, so we were able to use it. The flex piece though, however, that was in it was a bit haggard. So I put a new flex in it, and now the exhaust part of it's done at least, and we're soon gonna get ready to start this thing. The intercooler's on and stuff now. It's just mocked up in place, as you can see. Held up with some zip ties, but we know what needs to happen for the fabrication of the rebar. As you can see, that's pretty much all just cut apart now. But we got oil in it, we got coolant in it, and we're soon gonna start this thing. We got all the O2 sensors out, except for one. This one gave up the ghost and is now permanently affixed to this downpipe. So we got a new sensor in. Everything is buttoned up. We're gonna just check for leaks now, and before we put any plugs in, we're just gonna crank it over, check for leaks, and make sure everything is good before we fire it up for the first time. Okay, so key to the on position. Looks like no leaks. Looks like we're good there. Key off and then back on again. Okay, so it's not going to start, but you're just going to crank it over. Sounds great. Smells fuely. Okay, now that those are all, or that's all checked, I have a fresh set of plugs, gapped, ready to go in it. So we're going to jam these in, see if she fires up. So Clayton, we're ready. Well, it's not finished, but we're ready to start it. So we just put the new plugs in it. I have the catch can set up still to do to it, and obviously we got to finish the rebar for the intercooler, but it's to the point now. We're ready to start it. Clayton, are you ready? I mean, you just got here, but you showed up at the perfect time. So
yeah, that's how I planned it.
So, you know, if you hear any major rattle, bang, smashing, Robbie, turn the key off. Otherwise, fire it up. There we go. Got oil again. Time for the dyno. So yeah, on that note, we have a couple little things to wrap up, but the next time you'll see this, it'll be on the dyno. Making hopefully 400 something, similar to what Kayla's did.
Same kit, same results, hopefully.
Clayton, am I forgetting anything before we close out this video?
And I don't know, we filmed this over a little ways, so.
There's going to be lots of footage everywhere. But the exhaust is all done. We obviously didn't rev it. That was literally the first start. As you could hear, it was clickety-clackety because it had no oil in it because we had it all apart. But it sounds good now, so we just got to button up the last couple of things. Next time you'll see it is on the dyno. If you guys have any questions or comments, be sure to ask them below. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And Clayton?
Merch.
Nah, not merch. See you in the next video. Well, buy merch. Bye.